button. All right, we should be live. So obviously, this is our monthly chat with the patrons here. I typically do this on the last Sunday of every month, although sometimes I'll change up the day of the week. But February being a little shorter month, it seems like we were just doing one of these. It seems like just the other day I was sitting down with you guys. So how is everybody this morning? Of course, it's not morning for Dark Zero, but
pretty decent here.
It's 6 p.m. over here.
No, early evening.
Yeah, we still have a long night to go.
Yeah, I'm just getting my second cup of coffee, and
oh, I want my beer. I want a beer.
It always amazes me, these live streams, when I don't bring my McDonald's cup of coffee. People seem worried. It's like, what's wrong with DT? There's no coffee this morning.
Might be an indication. Might be an indication of whether or not you're at home or at the office. Too.
It doesn't matter. Even if I was going to stream from home, I'd still run into McDonald's and get my coffee.
Gotcha.
And I only do that really for these streams because I have coffee at my house, and I have coffee. I've got a Keurig coffee pot here at my office as well. But if I don't get the McDonald's cup, people are wondering.
Yeah, those little pod things are interesting for sure.
Yeah, they especially for me, because of what I do, especially here at the office, I'm working by myself. It doesn't make sense to make a big pot of coffee.
Yeah.
If you're only going to drink 1 or maybe 2 cups of coffee a day, it seems like a waste to make a big pot of coffee.
I thought you were going to say a big pot of gold.
Yeah, no. They especially for me, because of what I do, especially here at the office. For those of you that are hanging out in the YouTube chat, by the way, let me know if the audio is good. I know you guys can hear me. Make sure you guys can hear these guys as well, because I'm not previewing the stream. I guess I could.
Say a big pot of gold.
Yeah, I previewed it just a second ago. It looks like everybody is good, which is amazing. No audio issues this time. I was actually running a little behind getting everything set up. I actually didn't start like turning on the camera and lights and plugging in everything until about 10 minutes before the stream, which is not much time. I got to get some scenes and get scenes together in OBS and all this stuff last minute. I had to send a couple of emails. I had to post a little message on Patreon, and 10 minutes was really cutting it close.
Yeah. Oh, so what you been up to lately, Sir DT?
Not much here lately. Last few days, I've just kind of been relaxing a little bit. The weather is really starting to warm up, which, it never really gets cold that often here in Louisiana. As far as, winter's not much of a winter. But now, it's getting, 80 degrees. Grass is starting to grow again. I got to start working in the yard a little. Now I got to start mowing again. I got to get into that routine.
Yeah,
I already got trees that are blooming. I got an apple tree that's already blooming. We're not even out of February yet.
I've been busy with the Steam Deck.
No, you've been gaming. I've been gaming a little bit.
Not gaming. DT, we're too old. I was trying to make the desktop mode on the Steam Deck look like Zero Linux.
How's that going?
It works. It works just fine. The only issue is every time they issue an update, it's gonna undo everything in the system, and I have to redo everything.
Of course.
Yeah, immutable, baby, immutable.
Yeah, I was having an issue last couple of days with my Arch updates, because apparently the latest Arch update broke my Xmonad config or my Xmobar config. One of them, everything was all wonky when I did an update, so I had to downgrade until I get some time.
Usual Arch shenanigans.
Well, I'll figure it all out, but it's one of those things that
Oh, Stefan had a haircut.
Me?
The haircut.
He pulled his hair up. He's got his
I
hair pulled back.
just
Oh, you
pulled
pulled,
everything back. It's still there in its entire.
okay.
I'm not in the bald club here today. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, thanks.
Me neither.
Yeah.
There should be another name for bald instead of bald when you actually have hair, but you choose to. There should be another name for that.
I don't think anybody here is actually bald. I think everybody here is bald by choice.
I'm
It's
Buzz.
gonna-
I call it
it's gonna
Buzz.
be It's going to be a comedy show. We got the comedian among us today.
Who?
Josh. Who else?
He's just
Oh,
muted.
Josh, yeah.
He's just muted and off camera.
Yeah.
He's waiting until we say Gen 2 3 times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Darth Vader says Exmo Bar changed the way they do fonts. Yeah, I was reading that a few minutes ago. I actually changed my Exmo Bar config just about, 15 minutes before streaming and pushed it to my GitLab, and it does appear to work. Although the fonts do look a little blurry for some reason, but they're actually displaying the correct fonts, which is weird. I don't know. But yeah, Exmo Bar, I guess with the latest version 0.46, they changed the way you put the fonts in the config. Instead of using XFT, you use Pango style font names.
They might not get. They might be blurry because they don't get anti-aliased properly.
Yeah, that's probably it. Which using the XFT font names, you could actually specify anti-aliasing in that. So I need to go back and add that. You're right. That's going to be what it is.
Yeah. Oh well, Arch. I've been digging in the Steam Deck and studying the Arch system they're using. They forked the entire Arch repositories, and they're using what they need, the versions they need, kind of like Ubuntu, Debian style. So in order to, for example, in Wine, they're using Wine 7.19. Whereas on the Arch repositories, official Arch repositories, we're at 8.2. So they prefer to do everything on their own and fork everything. So they're unstable, and they customize everything to work on the deck.
Yeah.
And I was really sad to find out that they're using Pulse Audio, not Pipewire, because there's no future into going to Wayland if you stick to Pulse Audio. Especially with OBS, if you want to use OBS on Wayland. So I'm still digging, but yeah, I'm not playing much. I'm just waiting for Diablo 4 in June to play it on the deck, but that's
not sure if you'll be able to.
Yeah, not on the on day one, no, but they will push like they did for Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. Now they work flawlessly on the deck. They even show you all the deck controls on screen. They will do the same with Diablo 4.
I don't think so, based on what I heard. any kind of compatibility is not priority for Blizzard.
And we don't really need Diablo 4 anyway. Diablo 1, I mean, that's still the greatest game ever.
Well, how many years did it? Well, how long did it take them to add the? It took them a year to add the support for the Steam Deck. So I think it will be a year, 2 years after release of Diablo 4 to be able to play it on the Steam Deck. I don't mind it. I'll play it on the PC in the meantime. I don't mind it, but at some point,
I thought all those Blizzard games
compatibility with Linux. So
yeah, I thought all those Blizzard games had Linux problems.
It doesn't matter. We got bottles and all that shit.
Well, it does matter a little bit.
Actually, it does matter, depending on what kind of anti-cheat they implement.
Right.
And depending on so many other factors.
We'll see. I'm waiting for it when it comes out. We'll see.
Old Blizzard games work because they are actually quite old. Like anything, Diablo 3, World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, whatever. Those work because they don't have any kind of anti-cheat. All the anti-cheat is server-side. Let's be clear.
Yeah, but,
so those will work on Linux. But new
Overwatch works. Overwatch works on the deck.
Overwatch works.
Overwatch 2.
Only.
Overwatch 2, the new one.
Yeah.
Works on
Yeah.
the
Did they actually make sure that crazy bug with guns sticking up all the time was fixed?
day. Well, yeah, there always be something, but I'll wait and see. I have the deck. I have Battle.net installed. I pre-purchased Diablo 4 because Diablo. Listen, Diablo is part of who I am. I've been playing it since the first one in the 90s. It's ingrained in my blood.
You know what? I'm all about the godly plate of the will.
Yeah. Well, I always, and basically I cheat. I'm a cheater. I set my character to max stats and all items, million, billion gold and whatever before I start the game. So
Well, let's be fair. Everybody
won't
that
work.
played any of the first 3 Diablos was a cheater because, like, you had to be. Like, it was just cheating was rampant. It was part of the game.
yeah,
This
No.
time not so much. This time
No,
not so much.
back at the day.
Atma
You left from
5 was
school.
wonderful. I loved Atma 5.
It
Took my
needed to
sorceress
be
all the way up to max levels. Yeah.
yeah. So
brutally hard. I loved them the way they were. The old school RPGs. Diablo,
Yeah.
Gothic. Extremely hard. Leaving, getting home, not doing your homework for school,
Yeah.
obviously, and start
Well,
start
I used-
grinding
I,
those
Diablo 1
hard games.
Diablo 1, I used to play it on the PlayStation 1.
There's
Wow.
a PlayStation 1 port for Diablo 1. I didn't know.
I didn't know that either. I thought it was strictly a PC game.
No, they
no,
ported it.
Diablo is a multi-platform game.
Yeah.
It's been
I
forever.
played it on the PlayStation 1 because I didn't have a PC back then. I only had a Mac. So the only other thing I had was the PlayStation 1. So when it came out, I waited for it to come out for PlayStation 1 to play it, and I played it and finished it on the PlayStation 1 without cheats, because you can't cheat on PlayStation.
I've been thinking about buying myself Diablo. I do like to play some ARPGs, but honestly, I'm not sure I want that time commitment right now.
That's the
It's-
issue.
That's the only thing. I
That's
don't
the
want the
issue.
time commitment.
Right now, I'm playing God of War on my system, and I used to, because I'm a cheater. I used to go to when I reach a boss, I go to Windows, start the trainer in the background, give myself God mode, kill the boss, then go back to Linux and continue after killing the boss because it's a cloud save. Now I don't need to do that anymore because there's someone on YouTube who figured out a way to run the trainer on Linux, aka the Steam Deck and desktop. So now I don't need to switch between. I can play it and finish it on the PC. So more the
You know,
One thing
Big
I never
Pod make.
understood, why
I was going to say,
people
Big
like to
Pod
cheat.
makes a good point about some of these games having too big of a time commitment, because more and more of these AAA titles, they're all about how many hours of gameplay
No,
they
actually,
can pack into
100
these things. And a lot of
80
times, I just
hours.
want to play something for 15 minutes. You know,
that's why I
all
like
want.
shooter games, honestly.
That's
why I like
exactly
shooter
why I
games.
do shooters and why I do like 0AD real-time strategy games, where essentially it's a game of chess between you and one other person. When you're done, you're done.
Yeah, exactly.
DT,
I'm that way.
speaking of 0AD, I need to get it for my dad because he's currently playing Age of Empires 4, the latest one.
Yeah.
He finished it and he's bored with it. I need to get him 0AD because it's in his ballpark.
Yeah, I've been playing 0AD a little bit here in the last month, trying to get back my 0AD skills. I lost a little bit the first few times trying it, coming back after not playing it for a couple of months. And those first
After
couple of
watching-
games were rough.
After watching you play that game, I went and got the soundtrack because that music on that game is amazing.
It's great. Yeah.
I have been on my list. I have Age of Empire 4, but right now I'm stuck with Kerbal Space Program 2. That's the game for me.
Anything that involves space and rockets, huh?
Yes.
You should play Endless Sky. It's on the club. Endless Sky is all about space exploration and managing your resources and stuff like that. It could take you maybe a month to finish it, to complete or to take over every planet. I used to play it back in the day when it was called Ambrosia Escape Velocity. Then Ambrosia became a server company, and whatever, they no longer dealt in games. Somebody forked it, and it is only available for Linux. You can't find it for Windows. Endless Sky is a Linux only game. So
Oh, well.
yeah, for the first time ever, I hear there's a game that only exists on Linux, that doesn't exist on Windows. That's good. And it's a flat pack.
Yeah, because I can't think of like Linux only games. that's unusual. Even the ones that, we do have natively on Linux, they always make them cross-platform, because why would you create a game and not make it work on Windows?
I tried to find it for Windows because my brother only uses Windows, and he's the one who used to play Escape Velocity, and he used to love it. I wanted to send it to him, but it only exists on Linux. So I said, you want to play the game? You got to learn how to use Linux, my boy.
No.
By the way, guys, I don't know if I apologize if it's not allowed. Am I allowed to plug something I just did yesterday?
Go for it.
I just launched a merch store yesterday, out of the blue.
Okay.
I'm like, I received a notification from Stream Elements that I became eligible to start a merch store. I clicked OK, the OK button, and all of a sudden I spent 2 hours creating merch. And it's so easy. You just create it, and they sell, and they tell you how much profit you make per item, per sale, and that's it.
Yeah.
I thought it was more than that.
In the chat, somebody is mentioning that, they're using my DTOS configs, and XMO bar is broken. Yeah, I was discussing that I noticed that late last night. I've got to fix all of that. Anybody that's using XMO bar, not just my configs, but anybody that has XMO bar installed, the latest update changed the way fonts are handled. So there's going to be some changes to the config that have to be made. I'm going to push that to the DTOS repos as soon as we're done here. Probably in about 3 or 4 hours, you'll get that out.
We should mention that to Matt, because Matt from the Linux cast was going to switch to Xmonad. No.
Well, he'll be fine because he'll be
not running Gentoo.
Well, yeah, he won't already have an existing config that you'll be broken, right? He'll be starting from scratch. But yeah, he'll have to be careful, like going to GitHub or GitLab and getting like somebody's ancient config that hadn't been updated forever.
No, he has his own old config that
yeah, then that's going to be a problem.
Yeah. We need to let him know.
I'm going to run into trouble as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Arco lately has been having a lot of fun with window managers and Wayland, and now he has so many window managers in his Calamares installer. It's becoming something crazy. He's got like 32 different window managers in his Calamares install now. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it starts becoming
overwhelming.
It does, because this is one of the things we always talk about with Linux is choice is a good thing, but too much choice could be it could be confusing to especially a new user. It could be paralyzing. It's looking all of that. Well, this gigantic list of I don't know any of these window managers. Which one do I choose?
Yeah, and the good thing with Arco is when you select one, it comes with its own config that he worked hours and hours and days on. But the problem comes when they want to modify this configuration. All hell breaks loose, because the way he does it, it immediately breaks if you start modifying it.
It depends. There's one key. I'm running Arco since 1.5 years. I think I switched pretty much at the same point in time as GT switched to Arco, because I had issues with Ubuntu. And if you watch the videos, you're not going to have trouble. You just have to take the time, read the.
I'm talking about new users who really don't have the time. New users. Here's the problem. And users expect whatever they install to work right out of the box and be able to do whatever they want right out of the box without even bothering to read the
That's the thing,
headline,
because
watch the videos.
the thing is like that Arco is a self-declares. You gotta be able to take the time and study the necessary documentation distro.
To be frank, there's a lot of things that Eric does that inspire me to do better. Like he's working on he keeps making videos about his Nemesis scripts and how to create them. I use them as inspiration. And then for example, now I want to include a new option in my, because recently he released videos about system deboot, right? So I got inspired by his idea to include a button in my tool to allow users switch from grub to system deboot with a pre-configured theme.
It is interesting that systemd has been with us now for about 10 years, and yet when I install all of these various Linux distributions, none of them use systemd boot. Everybody still uses grub.
Yeah, because grub is almost self-aware, whereas system deboot, you have to edit the entries and work on that kind of thing. You have to edit
this would be where the systemd haters, they often say that systemd does too much. Like, the system deboot, does it really need to exist? Nobody
I'm
really
gonna
uses
say
it
this way: if you're running a single distro, so it's running a single install, so you're doing dual boot, it really doesn't matter what your bootloader is. It should be.
But if you're dual booting with Windows, it matters.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
It's
it actually
more complex
depends on
than grub. Let's say
it
it's more
depen-
complex
Yeah.
than grub.
I haven't booted using grub or system deboot or anything. My Windows in what, a year now. I literally have my my bootloader, whichever one it is. I didn't even know anymore. Honestly, I have it set so that it just passes and goes directly into the.
Oh, yeah, I was about to say, how would you not know what the bootloader is? But you're bypassing the screen altogether.
I want it to be just transparent, like it should be. If I want to
like a Raspberry Pi, it just boots directly into the.
If I want to boot into my what's it called, into my Windows install, or other way around, all I have to do is press F12 and select the right boot entry from UEFI boot menu.
Yep.
That's the correct way to do it.
I agree.
Bootloader should be, in all intents and purposes, transparent to the system, to the user.
Yeah, so
that's the correct way to do it.
Kind of like Manjaro, because you don't see grub; it's hidden. It's like when you reboot, it immediately boots into Manjaro. You don't see grub.
I think they're all hiding them now.
Well,
some of them are, not all of them, but some.
Kubuntu does.
The Ubuntu distros do. The newer ones, the older ones didn't, but yeah, some of the newer ones now.
On Ubuntu for years now, it has been that if Ubuntu is the only entry in the boot menu,
it just bypasses.
You will be bypassing it, but just go automatically into the. But if you have, let's say, another one like got
some beeping going on.
Another one that is, let's say, Windows or another Linux distribution, it will automatically show you the menu.
You know what's interesting, now that I mention it, the fact that, systemd obviously is this big suite of applications. It's not just an init system. And I wonder how many of these are popular. I know system deboot, again, the overwhelming majority of Linux users are using grub anyway. How many of you guys use some of the other systemd tools? Like, you guys using systemd timers, or you still using just old school cron jobs, or what about the networking stuff and things like that? Go ahead, Big Pod.
Probably everybody here is using what's it called, the systemd networkd.
Networkd.
I use greetd, which I actually like. It's pretty good. since SDDM and stuff is kind of troublesome, and I don't want to GNOME bloat.
Yeah, SDDM has a lot of issues with hybrid graphics, and that's a known fact.
Yeah, well, there's
with NVIDIA.
Like display managers are just generally a pain in the neck to develop because everything around them is badly documented.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this a few months back. There's no good login managers on Linux. Like none of them are any good. They all have flaws, and there's really only two that work.
GDM works okay.
Yeah, GDM and SDDM are the only two that half-ass work, and then you've got a bunch of alternative ones that are flaky, real flaky.
Well, LightDM works. The only issue with LightDM is just very basic, very, very basic. But it works. For any, like what we do is when people with hybrid graphics and NVIDIA have issues with a black screen, we tell them to type to LightDM. They switch from SDDM to LightDM, and then it works flawless.
I disagree. The only one that really works is GDM, if you ask me.
Well,
yeah, the problem with GDM's the best one, but are you going to install GDM if you're a Plasma user? Probably not.
No. It will bring GTK libraries, like a ton of GTK libraries with it. Yep. It's pointless. LightDM doesn't. LightDM just has a few dependencies of its own, but it doesn't bother anyone, and it just works. That's why we tell users to use that as opposed to GDM. But if you're using GNOME, GDM is amazing, and there's a tool called GDM Settings. It's a tool made by someone. It's amazing. You can modify the login screen to your heart's content. So.
Actually, on my own operating system that I use right now, Linux-based operating system, I have GDM, and I install the dependencies for GTK and Qt, like even before having any applications on it, because I know that sooner or later I'm going to install something that is Qt or something that is GTK, because I really don't, how to say this, care what kind of display toolkit it uses. I care that it works.
This is how we know Big Pod is not using Gentoo or a source-based distro. He doesn't care how many dependencies he needs. He just installs everything.
And more fun part, actually, no installation is done on the actual machine that I use. All the installations happen before updates ever even occur on my laptop, because I'm using Fedora Silverblue or custom spin of Fedora Silverblue. And all I do is update the image with all the updates already applied.
In the chat, somebody was mentioning StartX at login is the fastest. There's nothing wrong with StartX. It's just, if you're the only one using that machine, it's all right. But having to fool with like the exinit RC file and managing, if you've got multiple window managers on a system like I do, I got 15 different ones, having to constantly swap between them. It's a little bit of a hassle with StartX, where if you have a login manager, you just go through a menu, click the window manager you want to use, and away you go.
Yeah, StartX ain't for me, honestly.
I don't like to stare too long into the TTY.
For anything that is like a little bit I need for semi-professional use, I want something that actually also looks somewhat good, and I don't want to be opening into a TTY to log in.
You don't want to have to edit a config file every time you want to change window managers, right?
No, I don't want, if I turn on my laptop and I'm, let's say, preparing the presentation so somebody else could see my screen, I don't want it to open up into a black screen. That doesn't look good. Doesn't look professional. Honestly.
Yeah, Andreas, is Slim still a thing? It seems to be on and off. Like every now and then, it sees such little development that you'll think it's dead. Because I know it didn't get an update for like 10 years. And I was telling people, quit using Slim. It's probably a dead project. And then people are like, nope, no, it just had a commit after 10 years. So I don't know if it sees any development. It doesn't see much. But
it's kind of like like latte doc. Latte doc people, I get bug reports telling me, "Are you going to switch away from latte doc? It's not it's deprecated." I tell them I am the one who's building the package from the AUR. I know if it's receiving commits or not. It's still receiving commits, but it receives one every 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. So because right now, since the main developer left the project, now it's in limbo between KDE developers taking it under their wing as a official KDE application. But because of Plasma 527 and 6, it's a side project for now. They're gonna go back to. They're gonna start working on it after Plasma 6 gets released. I got confirmation from someone in the KDE systems. They're like, no, it's not dead. It's just we don't have time for it right now. We're in full throttle on Plasma 6. So
yeah, that would make sense for them to go Plasma 6 since Qt6 is out.
Yeah, and
for these kinds of projects too, like with things like Slim and some of these pieces of software that haven't seen much activity, I like to go to their GitHub or their GitLab and see what issues are open. Because if it's people are reporting a lot of bugs and they're not getting any kind of response from the maintainer, probably just use something else.
Yeah,
if there were alternatives.
Like the latest commit on LaTeDoc was an update to the README. So that's not a real commit.
Yeah, and that was probably the update to the README was telling people, hey, I'm not maintaining this anymore. Quit opening issues.
Well, I don't care what commit it gets. As long as it gets a commit, I know something is happening in there, so I keep using it. And it's not broken, so it still works. So if it still works, keep using it. So and Zero Linux relies so much on LaTeDoc that I cannot see myself switching to something else. It's my fault for relying heavily on one thing, putting all my eggs in one basket, as they say. But as long as it works for now, I'm keeping a low profile. And same thing with Zero G, for example, the GNOME edition. I didn't ship it themed like KDE edition. I didn't give it my touch because libadwaita is a nightmare to deal with. It's a nightmare to deal with. I told users, I ship it the way it is. You want to modify it, knowing full well that libadwaita will cause you issues. It's on you. I'm done.
My system works great with customized GNOME.
Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't, but you have to know what to do and what themes to use that work with libadwaita. If you go apply a theme that's GTK3, don't expect it to work, and don't come to me telling me it's broken.
One of the things I wish more free and open source projects did. Most of them obviously are very heavily focused around the idea of being extensible and customizable, but the ones that aren't, they have to understand that you're always going to have that segment of the community that's going to want to hack on your stuff. And if you don't make that an easy thing to do, it's going to be an issue.
No, honestly, no. It is my opinion that it is every open source project has the right to go in whichever direction they want to go, and
they have that right. I'm just saying they're opening up headaches for themselves.
Not really.
Not that they can't do it. That is not the
scope of the project. Close issue. Yeah. Simple as that. Just have what is scope of the project.
Will not fix, not a bug.
Not a bug, not scope of the project. You can fork it and do it yourself.
Well, the GNOME team is known for that. Not a bug, will not fix.
Honestly, I came to realize that's just how it is.
That's the world we live in, huh?
Yeah.
I'm going to start using that phrase in real life. Anytime somebody says something that I want to, not a bug, will not fix.
Just because it is open source project doesn't mean everybody gets to say what that project is. Only those who are making it have the right to say what it is.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
True.
Yeah, but like libadwaita, when people are wanting to theme, you know, their GNOME desktop, you know, do some GTK theming and stuff. You know, obviously, people are going to want that thing to be very customizable. You know, people imagine being able to do whatever the hell they want with a theme, for example.
Not
And when they
necessarily.
can't make, well, you know, I would think so.
In my
Especially
opinion,
Linux users. I mean, that's always been kind of a thing with Linux is ricing the desktop. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
really,
but
that's why
in my
r/Unix
opinion-
porn exists. Is that's what we're all about, right?
Yeah.
But in my
Yeah.
opinion, Linux developers are sort of lazy in that way. It should be that every application has its own themes. Simple as that.
Well, there's that argument, yeah.
That's the only way you can get, because really, the fact that I have to apply a theme to my system just to get dark mode applications is in many ways insane.
Well, we had this, you know, about 10 years ago with GTK2 to GTK3 and the whole debate about, you know, should you have like client-side decorations, or you know the should the applications, yeah, have their own theming, or should it be
They should have their
globally
own
set?
theming. They should have their own theming. Of course, if you have hints, that's one thing completely separate thing. Let's say really simply, if you have, let's say, a hint for your desktop that from your desktop that we want dark theme. Of course, every program should read this desktop defaults to dark theme, so I should default to dark theme. But having a single theme that it pulls in, that's questionable if that is good, honestly.
Yeah, but there's still so many programs. Like, I know we're on GTK4 now, but there's so many
Yeah,
programs that are still using older versions of GTK, even back to GTK2. There's still a lot of applications in use.
And we're to the backwards compatibility question.
Mhm.
At some point, we have to forget backwards compatibility in Linux. If
I
you
mean,
want
GIMP
backwards
is the
compatibility,
originator of the
go
GTK
to-
toolkit. And GIMP is not on the latest GTK.
It got GTK got out from that group. Simple as that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that that's all the question of backwards compatibility. So question remains: if you want backwards compatibility, go to Windows. They have all the backwards compatibility in it.
Wow.
Slowing Windows down a lot, because it has to keep the compatibility for something that was running 30 years ago. Needs to still be compatible, not because it needs to be, because it has to be.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
that's the selling point.
That is the selling point for because it's a commercial product, right? Obviously.
Not really. It's because that's what they decided they want the selling point to be for companies, that they can install Windows, whichever Windows it is, and they can get majority of their applications, even if they are DOS, still running. And that's why.
Well, this is an interesting point. Is I've talked a little bit about this in the past too, about backwards compatibility with Linux. Is we're not afraid to break backwards compatibility. We do it all the time, but commercial products, because they have to make a profit, right? These companies like Apple and Microsoft and Google, the operating systems they build, they can't just constantly be breaking backwards compatibility. But
Apple does it all the time.
But the community doesn't care at all. Like, we'll do it at the drop of a hat.
Because they fostered that idea. They didn't. That's because in the community they fostered the idea that backwards compatibility isn't important, and that's not a problem there.
Yeah. Somebody that Andreas in the Jitsi chat, egrep. Yeah, as far as breaking backwards compatibility, of course, that is a old GNU core util egrep that is deprecated. It's actually been deprecated for many years, at least a decade or more. Grep used to actually not all be one grep. There used to be E-grip, and wasn't there a F-grip? There's a zip grip. Now they've realized that having all of that stuff didn't make any sense. So now you've got flags for grip with the extended regex stuff. What is it? The dash capital E or whatever is the same as E-grip. But E-grip, if you do type it in the bash shell, it will still work. It just, it's essentially a hard-coded alias to grep with the proper flag now.
Yeah. I honestly, right now, I'm actually thinking of replacing my core utils from the
Oh my goodness.
type to something else.
Big pod. You just like causing yourself a lot of pain.
Oh, there's some good alternatives.
I don't mind people playing with alternatives, but just understand so many things that you're going to run expect the standard Unix utils to be there.
That's
right?
why most of my applications bring those with them. So you need them, have them packaged together. So I don't really care.
So don't be surprised if you run, especially with certain things like with awk and SID, because what GNU does with them is a little different than other people's implementations of that stuff. And don't be surprised if some of the scripts you use have flags for those programs that exist in the GNU version of those programs, but will not exist in the alternatives.
Right. So then that script needs to be packaged so that it brings with it or patched in such a way that it brings in said utility. It needs a dependency. End of story. That's how it should have been from the start. But it wasn't, because that was the thing. That was how Unix did it, and it had a good reason for doing that way. But
I mean, this dates back to the 60s, though.
Yeah.
I mean, they should have done it whether there was a different time. You're talking, some of this stuff got started like literally 60 years ago. Like,
and the reason at that time they actually needed to do it the way they did it is because storage was expensive. At some points, the memory, so the volatile storage was a bit per dollar at that kind of price range. Right now, you can get a gigabyte for less than $10, and in mass storage, you can get terabytes for terabytes per $100.
But we benefited from that, Big Pod. The fact that in the 60s, computing was so expensive as far as memory and storage. Like these standard Unix utilities, these command line utilities we all use, why are they so optimized and blazing fast? Things like grep, for example. Why is it such a fast program? It's because they had to make it that way back then, because they had no choice. They wouldn't have been able to use it if they couldn't get the most speed out of it. Where now, if somebody was trying to write some of these GNU core utils now, it would be sloppy as hell, and it'd be inefficient. It'd be bugs all over the place. So in a lot of ways, it benefited us that computing was such a chore back then.
Well, in the olden days, it was time is of the essence kind of thing, kind of mentality.
Yeah.
So every minute, every second counted. So every second.
But at that time was when it comes to execution of programs, wasn't measured in nanoseconds or in milliseconds. It was measured in minutes or seconds at
or days in some cases.
So
Russ,
we should understand that at this point we're measuring for some programs or for some codes, we're measuring executions, or especially on desktops, in maybe milliseconds. And it's for lines of code in nanoseconds.
Yeah, like yesterday on Matt's podcast, I mentioned the fact that people in NASA and government related stuff, they're still using system hardware from the 70s and floppy, the 5 1/4 inch floppies in NASA, because it does what they needed to do. They don't. That's why
the reason to use it.
Yeah.
And
I found it surprising that every update of the kernel they start stripping out code for support for all that. But then again, as we talked, if they want to use that version of the kernel with support for their hardware, they should maintain it themselves once it gets stripped from newer versions of the kernel.
Let's remember that the rover that was sent 2 years ago has a processor from 20 years ago or 25 years ago, something like that.
Processor from 20 years ago, and it runs Debian.
No, it doesn't.
Well, he has
Let's be clear. Let's be clear.
He had to throw it in there. He had to throw it in there.
That runs Debian. That's right.
No. Let's be very clear. The rover that is on Mars that was from that has a processor from 20 years ago or something like that actually doesn't run Linux. There is a component on it that runs Linux, but the actual brain of the rover doesn't run Linux because Linux isn't appropriate operating system for that, because it needs to be fully real time. Linux, even with real time kernel, doesn't get to be that. That's one of the big problems with Linux. Why it crashes when it runs out of memory.
The drone that's on Mars is powered by Linux.
That one was a technology demonstrator, so you do not need to have an actual real-time operating system, because one of the mandates of real-time operating system, it needs to run whether RAM is full, RAM is empty, whatever. That's why if RAM gets full, it just removes one of the tasks, the task with least priority. Where in Linux, it just crashes if RAM is full. Sorry, that's not what a rover that is driving on Mars cannot crash at all.
Yeah, because it crashes. Good luck getting it back up.
Well, you're gonna get it back up.
Yeah, because you have to physically power off the machine on Linux.
Power off. It does that. It has systems for that. But you know what's funny? That compared to Linux, Windows is more real time. That's why it's slightly, in certain sense, slightly better. Because even if you have full RAM, your system will still work. It will be slow, but it will work. Linux crashes.
That is true, and Linux breaks.
And that's
I break Linux all the time, and one of the points where Windows really shines is that, unlike Linux, where I have to work to break things, Windows comes broken pre-installed.
Fun fact: that's one of the reasons why Windows uses more RAM than Linux.
How so?
Because it keeps certain amount of RAM actually allocated for itself. In addition
for the file system?
No, in addition to what it requires to ensure that it will keep that the core logic of keeping that memory, it will keep working. It needs to keep that so it can actually still work. Because if in Linux, it only takes all the RAM it requires, nothing more. Which means that if it's full, it cannot do anything more, which is why it crashes. Windows keeps certain buffer, so even if RAM is full, Windows can still operate. And actually, it takes far more. It takes certain amount as a buffer, which then releases slowly to user space, so it can use it. It's actually quite well architected in RAM usage. You can use it takes I don't remember how many percentages of RAM just for a buffer, so that even if RAM is full, everything will still work, because it was made with that thinking in mind.
Yeah, but I guess we have swap files, right?
What? Sorry, didn't hear you.
I guess we have swap, right, as well.
Yeah, but swap has that problem of being on a disk.
And I was laughing at Leviticus in the chat. He says, telemetry is kept in RAM, LOL.
No, well, the program for telemetry is kept in RAM, of course, because where it isn't. Even if we would have telemetry on Linux, we kept in RAM because it is a running program.
No. And I was checking some of the distro releases, which we had a ton of distro releases in the last month, but just in the last week, I noticed we had new releases of Parrot, Athena, which I've never heard of, Neptune, OpenSUSE, TrueNAS, Gparted, Ubuntu 2204.02, that point release. Red Core had a release, Tuxedo OS, which is kind of new. I haven't checked that out. Easy OS also had a release. You guys been playing around with any
I
distro
installed
hopping?
CashieOS just the other day.
Oh no!
And the reason I did it, I've been waiting forever for an Arch distro that supports ZFS root file system, and it does, and it works well. And they treat it first class. It's not a throw-in, and it survived a kernel update, and it's working really well. And I ported from my Debian system. I back up my system to a portable drive that's ZFS. It imported it correctly on CashieOS, where it didn't on Ubuntu. Ubuntu's kernel's not updated. Doesn't support the latest version of ZFS on Linux, but this one did. So it's working quite well. It has in the boot menu, it has a entry on it where you can restore to a previous version. But I hadn't taken the right snapshots or stuff, so it didn't do anything, but the hook is in there. And I discovered that ZFS and Grub don't work that well together. If you use systemd boot instead of Grub, you get support for things like ZSTD compression and other things like that. So they had systemd boot and support too, so I'm using that as well. So far so good. I'll keep it around.
Well, it sounds good, Murray, but at the same time, I think you maybe have a lower bar than the rest of us, because when you said it survived a kernel update, so that's good. I'm thinking, well, that should be, you should expect that. That shouldn't be.
Yeah, well, that's because the other systems I tried didn't. I think was Endeavor OS or something or other one. It worked fine until you did an update, and then the ZFS didn't get installed in the kernel properly.
I could see that being a problem on a distribution like Endeavor. That's not really their kind of thing, you know, playing around with.
Nor Zero Linux, because I've been asked multiple times, why don't I add ZFS support? Because to me, ZFS is more of an enterprise kind of file system. I don't see its mass adoption on a user-based level.
Just tell me to try for ButterFS.
Yeah, ButterFS is still fully supported on Zero Linux, XFS, and ext4. But I am sometime in the future, I might drop even ext4, because ext4 is really lagging behind. It's not getting as much love as ButterFS. XFS doesn't get a lot of love because it just works. It has no issues, so it doesn't need to get a lot of love. But ext4, I read somewhere that ext5 is in the works. So we'll see what.
No, that's been in the works for
a
long time.
Been up to ext12 by now.
Right.
Yeah, I read it someplace recently. I don't know how long it's been in development, but ext4 is really showing its age. It's really slow. I have a system with ext4. I copy a lot of large files back and forth. ext4 cannot keep up. It keeps the CPU keeps getting pegged at 100%.
I'm not so concerned about speed as I am reliability. What happens when you get a power failure on ext4?
Yeah, that's a problem. With XFS and ZFS, not much will happen. You will be able to recover no problem.
Yeah.
But ext4 has to be dropped. I think I'll be the first one to drop it, because it doesn't have any beneficial feature for anyone. It's just a standard file system.
It's stable.
That's the claim to fame, is stability, especially compared to some of the newer file systems like ButterFS. I'm sure ButterFS has gotten better in recent years, but I know just 2-3 years ago, people were still having problems with their file system being corrupted with using ButterFS and people losing data, and that's obviously a huge issue that nobody wants to put up with. So
What I read was that
with ButterFS.
ButterFS was okay for a root file system as long as you don't use any RAID or things like that. You just use a straight disk on it.
And you brought up Murray, you brought up another question I receive a lot on my Discord is, when will Zero Linux support RAID? I'm like, hardware RAID has been discontinued, so all we are left with is software RAID. So software RAID, we don't really have the right tools, especially with Grub. I don't think RAID 0 works great with Grub. There's a lot of issues with RAID on Linux. So I told them once I feel it's more mature, I might add support. But for now, it's not supported. I don't even support encryption in Calamares. If you want to use install, for example, alongside another distro or Windows or whatever, encryption does not work. I don't know how to fix it because I'm not a developer. I'm just waiting on someone to fix it or to show me how to fix it, to be able to add the encryption, because a lot of users want encryption because they value their privacy. And
ZFS has encryption built into it and compression as well.
Yeah, but you have to have Calamares to support it on its end.
I think you can use locks for encryption.
What?
Now, what was that?
I think you can use locks for encryption.
Yeah, the Lux encryption is part of Calamares, but if you there's a lot of people who install dual boots. In dual boot, and when you do manual partitioning, for some reason Calamares just crashes at the end of the install. So I don't know how to fix it. Nobody showed me how to fix it yet. So until then, I'm just gonna stay away from it.
The other thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've recently installed Tuxedo OS 2.0 on my laptop last night, and I used ButterFS so I could use time shift easier with it. But time shift is still buggy for me for some reason. I don't know why. But
Tuxedo is Ubuntu based.
Yeah, it's Ubuntu based, but it has the 6.0 kernel. It has the 5.27 KDE plasma. It had the NVIDIA control center and everything set up straight out of the box. I didn't have to do any of that. I mean, the latest and greatest, not the generic one, and then you have to go find the latest and greatest in the repositories and all that stuff. It was just there. I loved it. But
that is interesting, being based on Debian and Ubuntu LTS. I'm looking at DistroWatch, but it has the 6.0 kernel.
Yeah. Well, actually, 6.1 after I got it installed, after updates and everything.
Okay.
That's pretty recent.
That is, because on Arco, I'm running 6.1.14, and I did an update this morning.
Yeah, and I'd have to boot it up, but I could look.
The system has a newer kernel than you?
Huh?
I think this is a 6.2.
But I've got this guy's brother inside of it right now.
I'm still rocking 5.
Oh, by the way, I use the LTS kernels.
I should probably update.
Well, I did have to go to kernel.org and then git clone my kernel and then read through the documentation, because it's been a hot minute since I actually compiled a kernel for an x86 system.
The other thing about CachyOS is that it's built to be ultra fast. So Phoronix did some benchmarks against Ubuntu 22.10 and Fedora and Clear Linux, and it came out ahead. Clear Linux came out ahead in everything, significantly faster, but it has issues. It's not a good desktop OS. But CachyOS was better for gaming only, and it was marginally faster for gaming. But the other things, like if you're using GIMP or KDN Live or things like that, it didn't show any significant difference on it.
Now, was that test done with any like some of the custom kernels that they offer, or was that with it's just a generic?
I don't know. I can look it up now and see what they but they did.
I was just wondering because that would definitely change the test depending on what kernel.
Well, they tweaked the Casio desk is particular about the kernels they use. I don't know what the other ones do, but let's see if I can find it. Give me a few minutes.
Oh yeah. Have any device drivers be written in Rust for Linux?
No. And the
Not
main
yet?
reason for that is because they have working implementation drivers, but they're still experimenting with like how deeply they want to support Rust in the kernel stack. But I do know that the NVMe driver was rewritten in Rust, but it's not actually in the mainline kernel yet.
Yeah, I heard that was just
Just
like
did that
something
as an
to
example.
learn. Yeah, I think it was something to just learn the
A
language.
lot of projects are switching to Rust these days.
Rust is also rewriting the core utils on it.
Yeah,
It's work in progress.
and
I'm
Cloudflare,
just
and Cloudflare also is working on converting their services to use Rust as well.
I'm just staying with C. I like my manual memory management.
Well, it's a new phase in Linux where everybody is moving to Rust. It'll pass, and they will move on to another
Eventually.
language in like 10, 15 years.
We'll be using Objective-C before you know it.
People probably thought the same thing about System D too.
Yeah.
They actually did.
Speaking of kernel commits, I did see a couple of days ago Linus Torvalds, I guess, got mad on the mailing list again. It's been a while since we had a good Linus rant, but apparently somebody pushed a commit to the kernel, and the commit message, I guess, wasn't a good commit message. Maybe it was lacking one, or it was very short, and he didn't understand what it was meant to do, that merge. So he basically went on a very lengthy rant talking about if you can't be bothered to write a proper commit message, then your merge is essentially buggy garbage and you have no business trying to merge anyway. And basically, you're an idiot if you can't type a proper git commit message.
Yeah, a total noob. And we talked about
A
it.
total noob. Wow, you're worse than Linus. That's mean, Dark Zero. That's a total noob.
Well, I like to call it as it is. I don't like to beat around the bush. Total noob.
I mean, they could have.
Well, Linus was mean. He actually told the guy his merge request, not only did it not have a commit message, he said actually after he reviewed it a little bit to see what it did, he said your merge request is, quote, completely pointless. Well, he basically just crapped all over the guy's work. I don't know how long it took him to actually
Well,
work on.
I mean, in industries, people are getting lazy or they're getting sloppy. People don't take things in formality very seriously. I mean, I think that's part of where it comes from him. I mean, Linus, really in relative terms is not that old. I mean, he's probably a little over 50 now, but
He's in his 50s.
Yeah, so he was kind of on the tail end of the
he's an old fart.
Yeah, but he's a younger old fart. So.
So what you're saying? Okay, I see what you're saying.
There's levels to this old fart thing.
Yeah, can anybody read what that says on my screen up in the upper left-hand corner?
No.
Nope, it's just a black picture for you.
Oh well, it's the error message I got when I tried to boot into Tuxedo. This happened once on an install.
Yeah, it's all pixelated. It's not possible to read it.
It says failed to start LSB : stop : boot and start it on shutdown. Anybody understand what that means?
Sounds like a system error of some kind.
Well, I'm thinking what it is, just off the top of my head, is since this is not a Tuxedo computer, it's saying, screw you, you're not going to be able to use this. But I did have it installed and I was using it.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's designed for specific hardware that you don't have. Is that what you're saying?
Right. It's a German company that sells pre-made computers with Tuxedo installed on it. It's their
Yeah,
own
I talked with a friend yesterday about the whole shenanigans about hardware manufacturers shipping Linux on their hardware. We both agree on the fact that even though they make the hardware and the software, it doesn't feel that way because simply they don't do the software. They just do what is on top of something that they don't do. So they do a desktop environment with drivers that is on top of Arch, on top of Debian, or on top of whatever. So there's a disconnect between the base and what they add on top of the base. So
well, that's what it sounds like with his error.
Yeah,
This failed to start LSB, whatever.
right.
Josh mentioned is probably a system D issue. It's going to be a networking issue of some sort, probably, and they've designed it for their specific laptop hardware, whatever, and you just
the disconnect between what they added on top and their hardware and whatnot. They although they make their drivers available on the AUR for Arch users, but you have to know what to build and how to build them and what dependencies to install to get them to work correctly. And they don't provide direct support because those packages are not by them on the AUR. It's by someone on the AUR.
Well, what surprises me is the fact that it was working just fine early this morning.
Yeah. Sometimes, like, it's the same to me personally. It's like, okay, I installed Mac OS on a PC and it was working, and now it's no longer working. So Mac OS was built for Apple devices, but some people Hackintoshed it and made it work on a PC. That doesn't mean it's going to continue working. This is what it feels like to me.
Yeah, I really wish people would stop pushing Hackintosh because it's such a bad experience and it's so buggy, and you're setting people up for so much heartache and pain. Like, if you got to use Mac, go buy a Mac. Go buy a used MacBook.
Yeah.
And if you want something that's an alternative to Windows, if that's why you're installing Hackintosh, guess what? There's a much better alternative. It's called GNU/Linux.
Yeah, a lot of people tell me, why don't you install Mac OS on a VM? I'm like, I have a MacBook. If I want to use Mac, I use it on the MacBook. Why would I want to use it on a VM on a PC that it wasn't made for? So,
right. It's just going to be. It's always going to be a bad experience.
It is.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong. Asahi Linux on a Mac, Linux on a Mac. Why are they doing that? Just to prove that they can? It's not made for that hardware.
There's one application to run Linux on a Mac. If you got one of these good old school MacBook Pros that won't support or will be in too much duty for the new updates, just put Arch on them and you'll be fine.
Yeah, but I'm talking Asahi Linux, which targets M1, M2, and in the future M3. There's no point.
No.
I mean, I think
it's a proof of concept. It's a proof of concept.
I think there is a point in stuff like Asahi because macOS is proprietary. It's limiting. I don't think you even have.
Yeah, why did you buy a Mac in the first place then?
Well, I don't know. That's maybe exactly.
Right? Okay.
Or maybe
you don't want...
Well, I can answer that for a lot of young people. It's because many colleges and universities have these kids go purchase them, and they get them at a discount. Being a student as well.
Okay, this is a limited case scenario, but in the grand scheme of things, you paid $3,000 for a computer you don't want to use the OS it came with on. Okay, then spend less than that, get a computer where you can put Linux and enjoy yourself. What the hell?
A $50 ThinkPad off of eBay.
I don't know. Shouldn't we educate more for real open hardware? I'm still struggling to buy a laptop. And I do fear I have to go the ThinkPad.
No. This is true. This is so true.
We have open software, but open hardware is a terrible issue.
Concept.
I just want a commercial laptop that has Wi-Fi chip that has an open driver.
Yeah.
If I could get that,
Looking
that
at
would
your
be-
mobile
graphics.
Pull out
That's a
this
single
book that I've
GPU.
got here that has an open source package for
Uh-oh,
its
the cat just made a mess.
What did you say, Josh?
Oh,
We couldn't hear. The cat was.
book here in my
Andreas was making noise.
Yeah, sorry.
But I've got this Pine book right here. The Wi-Fi chip is fully open source.
Oh, but I've got that same Mac, the Pine Book. I've got the Pine Book Pro, and it's an okay device for what it is. But
It could be better.
It's a very, very cheap device.
Reminder that Pine 64 is a hardware company, not a software company.
Right.
Well, speaking of
And it's an
open-
ARM device too, so that's another thing to keep in mind.
I
Did
have
any of you try out Framework or has gotten any experience / direct reviews of using the Framework?
Well,
hardware?
Linus has money in Linus Tech Tips has money invested in frameworks. He's got $25,000 invested.
Yeah, well,
So, but speaking of open hardware, an open hardware to me is a laptop with dedicated graphics, no integrated graphics, a Wi-Fi chip that works, and call it a day.
Open firmware.
An open firmware, yeah, of course.
Yeah. That's what we need.
Open core boot, yeah.
So an old ThinkPad from 2008.
Yeah, that's the only kind of open hardware.
The old ThinkPads, they really are the best.
I had one. I liked it until the battery went.
I had one. I sent it to a friend in Kentucky that didn't have a computer.
Can you still
Yeah.
get batteries for them? Because I had difficulty.
Oh, I don't know.
no.
I
The
know,
last time I
Micro
searched
Center
for a
has
battery
universal.
for yeah, because I had a problem finding a battery for one of my old ThinkPads. I
Yeah.
forget what model it was, but yeah, the battery was bad, and I looked all over, and
You can't
I
get.
think I
after
finally
the-
had to buy one.
And they're
You
expensive.
couldn't find one new. I think I found a used one off of eBay that I paid next to nothing for.
And there,
Yeah,
there are
right.
no replacement parts for anything prior to X200 series.
No, and at some point they just become. You just got to keep them plugged in all the time. They're not going to hold a charge.
Yeah, like with me, and I'm talking to you guys now from my MacBook because my system is down now because I'm doing the cable management stuff. But this MacBook was my first ever laptop, and it will be my last. Laptops, when it comes to Linux,
Battery life?
no, the battery is dead. I keep it connected to power all the time.
Okay.
It's from 2016. It's about time. But the when it comes to laptops, I agree with Stefan here. It's very hard because now I'm a full-time user, a Linux user. I will not use anything else, and I have I don't have any more reasons to switch to Windows. So when it comes to Linux, finding a laptop these days is like finding a needle in a haystack.
No. My problem with laptops, why I don't use them unless I absolutely have to, like if I'm traveling or something, I'll carry a laptop
That's
with
the
me,
thing.
is I don't like typing on a laptop keyboard. I just hate it. It's not a real keyboard. No,
First thing I do is plug one in the side of it.
Yep.
Well, it's a guarantee thing to get.
You
a
have to
pain
carry
in
an
the
extra
neck.
keyboard, right? You're not going to use the laptop keyboard.
I was
Staring downwards on a small screen with a keyboard right in front of it.
Yeah,
That's
all
guaranteed
right.
I
to get
was
neck
going to
pain.
use this as an excuse, but
Wow. Well, you're going to have to plug a keyboard into that. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking of which, this Steam Deck, I'm not kidding when I say it's a pure laptop. It's a laptop chip. It's a laptop motherboard inside a gaming thing. It's just programmed differently than an actual laptop, but it has replaced my computer in the store. I do all my billing. I do all my YouTube watching, everything I do on that thing. The only thing I can't do, because they use their own fork of the Arch repository, is build packages for my repo from the AUR. But other than that, it just does everything for me. I'm constantly on it. I'm chatting on it. I'm watching YouTube. It's amazing. It's low power, and because of my situation here, we need to save on electric bills as much as we can. We have to tighten the belt, as they say. So I'm using this, so I don't use the desktop that uses 300 watts.
You know what you could you know what you could pair with that to make a nice little traveling kit? Get you one of those 40 key keyboards, the small, since it's a small device anyway.
I have one. I have one.
Yeah. And then that's what I use sometimes with my phone. I just plug in a little tiny keyboard.
I think it's a Satichi aluminum keyboard this big. I got it for this Mac because it has the keys and the sticky keys. ما في يخلص هو بخلص. So I prefer using that keyboard instead. And the best part of that keyboard is it can connect to up to 3 devices. I can just switch with a key with a number 1 Bluetooth, number 2 Bluetooth, number 3. I can switch between computers. I use it on this laptop and I use it on the Steam Deck at the same time. And Logitech MX Master, same thing, 3 devices at the same time. So good pairing.
Yep. How many USB ports are on your Steam Deck?
One.
I'm not familiar with the just one?
Yeah, you want USB-C.
Wow.
One USB Type-C, but I have the dock. I got the.
Oh, okay. And then you can. Okay, I see how it works. I was about to say that's not enough ports. Yeah.
I have 3 USB 3s on the dock, 1 USB Type-C for pass-through power, an HDMI, and a gigabit Ethernet.
Well, contrary to how a lot of people are treating it, the Steam Deck is actually not intended to be a computing device. It is Valve treats it like a console, so that's why they only put 1 USB-C port on it.
Yeah, exactly.
In their eyes, that's what it is, and that's
It's
how
more like a Nintendo Switch, but you can play PC games on it. And
there's another thing we talked about yesterday is that they didn't add more USB ports because they wanted to be competitive price-wise. They wanted to compete because there was the Aya Neo, there was a lot of handheld consoles before them running Windows, of course, and they were extremely expensive. So in order to compete, and since they are a gaming-centric company, they decided to skimp on all the shenanigan USBs and whatnot and keep it as simple as possible, doing the one thing that this company does best is gaming. But since it's based on Arch, they felt free to keep the desktop mode in, since it's a laptop chip and a laptop motherboard, so people have the freedom because it's an open platform. This is an open platform device, not a closed.
Well, they know people are going to install things like Emacs on it and want to be able to,
I have ZSH. I have replaced Bash with ZSH. I applied my config, my Zero Linux config, on this thing, and it's working just fine. No issues whatsoever. Everything works just fine. So I'm using it as a desktop because it works.
Wouldn't you need to reinstall everything once you update the Steam Deck?
Yes. Yeah. Not everything. Only the stuff that go into, for example, user share, like icons.
Yeah, like the shell and stuff like that.
Yeah, those things I have to reinstall, but anything in the home directory stays the same. My .com.
I guess you can have an install script in your home directory.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I was working on that before I dismantled everything. But I'll be writing a script that will do that every time a major update gets released, and it's just simple. Just install 3-4 packages, and that's it. Because the themes I use, I built myself from the AUR, so they go into user share themes instead of .themes and .icons and stuff like that. I might even go the extra mile and not use those packages and use the ones that go into .themes and .icons. That way, the update does not wipe them out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm not using a config that would completely break my system. No, the only thing I messed up, I don't know what it's using. I think it's using system deboot with Plymouth to show the Steam Deck logo when it's booting, but for some reason I forgot to remove the line in my script that installs the Grub theme and updates Grub. So It didn't break the system, so that's good.
Yeah, that's good. I have a small announcement to make, guys. This may scare some of our viewers on YouTube, but I installed Windows.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that.
on my main machine.
Do we mute him? Do we mute him now or later?
No, we've already said Windows has Linux beat on some things. I've already talked
Yeah.
about how Windows comes broken
I
pre-installed, but
finally
also
decided to buy
if you
the-
want vendor lock-in, you kind of have to use Windows.
Yeah, I decided to install because I've been finding myself doing a lot of 3D printing and stuff like that, and the only CAD that I know how to use and doesn't crash for me is SolidWorks. So I decided to just install Windows on my main machine, stop using my laptop because it's not as powerful, and I can also play my VR games because Oculus and it doesn't have.
yeah. Well, you can install Windows in dual boot on Steam Deck. It's officially supported by Valve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think everybody here probably has at least one machine that either has Windows on it, or if you have a powerful machine, you at least keep a VM of Windows around.
That must be
Mm.
weird.
Yeah.
No.
No,
No?
none of us. Like everybody
No.
said no.
No.
I was
No.
trying to help
Never.
Slendy out.
No.
I was giving him an out, but
I'll see myself out then.
I did have a Windows install about 6 days ago because I wanted to test something there real quick. But then Linux 6.2 released, so that means I could plug my GPU into a system that's actually supported.
Yeah, but there is a positive. It's not Windows 11. It's Windows 10. Okay. At least I'm not installing that.
I can't really comment. I haven't played with Windows 11, so
There is a video of some guy that put Wireshark on Windows 11, and it was a fresh install. And what it does is it pings a bunch of third parties and not even Microsoft. It pings, I don't know, Steam and other companies constantly. It's something, I guess.
yeah, you probably don't want to be monitoring your like networking traffic when you're running Windows
I guess.
or Mac OS. Even there's really no telling what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is why I stick to Windows 10 ameliorated or something like that. If I need to use
The old
Windows.
Bentoy stick goes back in.
Yeah.
I do know someone that used to work for Apple, and he might have some information as far as what Mac OS is tracking on people, but I don't think he's at liberty to say because
Oh, I am.
he signed an agreement never to.
I am at liberty. I am at liberty. Oh, I want to get it out there. Don't think that Apple says the truth. Apple says lies as big as Google's, if not bigger.
Those are big lies.
Big lies. And you would know that there are big lies when, as soon as you go to on your first day. When you join Apple, they take you into a metal bunker, taking away your cell phone and anything metal you might carry, your watch, anything that is remotely mechanical, and tell you, okay, here's the thing: everything bad that people talk about us is true, but you're not allowed to tell anyone. They say something along the lines, your ass belong to us. So basically, anything you do, you think, you breathe, you eat, you use, belongs to Apple when you're working for Apple.
That's scary. You do know this is being broadcast live to.
Let him come at me. Let him come at me. I'm not on video. They cannot do shit to me.
Grave.
Come at me, Apple. Come at me.
Come at me, baby. Come at me. Because I'm a
Can't take nothing from nothing.
Dropped a little bit.
So Canonical is forcing Spin developers to not pre-install Flatpak support.
Yeah.
Katie and Gnome are spending $200,000 to develop a Flatpak store where you get subscription and have paid applications. And Garuda Linux does not support Flatpaks or snaps. It says it recommends you don't use them on it.
Oh,
So-
that is so based.
Well, I mean, it depends. Every distribution is different. Manjaro has Flatpaks and snaps both enabled. Most distributions don't have either one enabled. Some distributions have one or the other enabled. Hell, some distributions ship app images.
I think
It does. At the end of the day, you can get any of the three or all three on any distribution. What they ship by default really doesn't matter.
I just installed FlatHub on mine right before we started streaming.
Yeah.
I think
and Discover's got a nice little back end and everything, and if you set your sort to type, not type, but alphabetical, it automatically brings Flatpak up first.
Honestly, if I was a distro maintainer, I'd probably just ship Snapd, Flatpak, and AppImage already installed. And not any of them pre-installed as far as any applications,
right?
But at least have so if a user wanted to use them, it's already there. That way, nobody can complain. If you don't want to use it, don't use it. But if you want to use it, it's there. It's set up for you.
I'm pretty sure I would just recommend not to use more than one package manager, because then you can, have
but one of the most vocal communities in the Linux community, we always talk about the fight between systemd and the alternatives, or the fight, between Ubuntu and all the other distributions. There is a definite fight amongst the community of native packages versus these third-party repositories. And I know the people that really push that. There's some people that vehemently disagree with you being able to get a piece of software that is not natively packaged for your distribution. Now, I'm not one of those people, but there's a lot of them out there in the community, and I think they cause a lot of this infighting.
I mean, I personally cannot really justify something like Snap or Flatpak on distros like Arch, because you have stuff like the Arch user repository where you can find pretty much anything there, right? So why not use that instead?
Because sometimes the AUR packages are broken. That's why.
Good point.
Sometimes, and the AUR packages may or may not automatically update, where snaps and Flatpaks do, and app images can, if you set them up to do that as well. There's also differences between the packaging formats. One of the things that really bugs me is the people that don't understand that snaps, Flatpaks, and app images, they're three different formats, and they don't actually do the same things. Like, people wonder why Ubuntu, I see this all the time posted in the community, why doesn't Ubuntu just drop snaps and go with Flatpaks? Why did they have to create their own thing? Well, they created snaps way before Flatpak existed. They created snaps for use on IoT devices and for the server. Flatpaks actually don't work in the server, right? That's why Canonical makes all their money with the server. That's why they create snaps. That's why they're using snaps. That's why they'll always be using snaps and not Flatpak, at least not switching from snaps to Flatpak. Snaps serve a real world purpose for Canonical. They're not using snaps because they don't want to use Flatpaks. Flatpaks wouldn't work for them.
Wasn't Snap made for Ubuntu Touch as well? Because
it was made for the phone. It was originally, it was called, before it was Snap packages, they called it Snappy, and before that they called them Click packages. It's kind of been around for like 10 or 12 years. Snaps, in some form or another, their evolution, it's been around for a long time, Canonicals.
And yet, it barely has the ability to stop auto updates.
Oh, you can turn off the auto updates. Yeah. But by default, it's set to auto update. Yeah.
You can freeze them easily.
Yeah.
I'm using a freezed snap of Cadent Live since the main package broke for me for some reason. I can't load any files.
But the point of my rant is, anybody on the internet that you ever see, why doesn't Ubuntu drop snaps and adopt Flatpaks? You know that person has no idea what they're talking about, because they have no idea what snaps and Flatpaks even do, because they're not the same thing.
They're just following what's being said online.
Right.
Yeah. So, anyway, guys.
And you know what? I see those posts, like if you go to like r/Linux and somebody will post something ridiculous like that and get like 2,000 upvotes, and there'll be hundreds of, yeah, you said it. And I'm like, oh my God, this person doesn't know anything.
is
Anyway,
You can say the most idiotic thing on r/Linux, and people will applaud you.
yeah. Anyway, guys, something came up. I have to jump off of here.
Yeah.
Okay. See ya.
Take care, guys.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us.
Take care.
All right.
Take care. Peace out.
Yeah, we got about another 30 minutes or so on the stream here.
I've come across an application called Static X, which complements app images, snaps, and flatpaks. It's lower level. In a few cases, it can replace them. It takes a dynamic package like dmenu or Roby or any of the other standard stuff and makes it static so that it can be used across distros on it. And it's written in Python and it works really well. So I used it to, you can use it, say, in Python, you have a pip install dmenu, but it requires dmenu to be on the system you're running. So you can put it in the app image, was what I did, and I can run it instead of having it installed on the system, it's running from inside the app image. And it only works because it's made static and it's cross distro. So it's working quite well. Anything with Rust, it seems to work well on it as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at the page. Pip install static X. Okay.
Yeah, pip install static, and then static X pass to the binary you want, make static space, and then the new name for what you want to call it. You can call it the same thing. It'll put it in the current directory on it. It doesn't work for everything, but it works for a lot of things. It worked for e-links, just about anything with Rust created as well.
It looks like a very simple program.
It is, and it's easy to use as well.
Yeah, because I'm reading the documentation, like the man page for it, and it's like, and there's only like half a dozen flags and options for it. I was like, that's my kind of tool.
Yeah,
Don't get overwhelmed.
And I use it all over the place now to put them in app images on it. And it's worked quite well, and it's very compact as well. The other one that's similar, it's also Python, is Exodus, and that does a similar thing, but it creates a folder. It doesn't create a static image, and they're all still dynamically linked, but it takes them all the dynamic links and put them in one subfolder and relates to that particular binary. So when you move that folder from place to place, you're getting all the links in it, but they're still all dynamic, not static on it. Okay. And I use that quite as well too. For if I can't get static X, I'll try that one. And you can take that folder and put it in an app image, so that you can then have an app image you can distribute for that particular application. And that's working.
Actually, wasn't Mac the one with just the virtual disk you could just copy to your hard disk? So basically, installation is copy. In my opinion, that's the easiest way of distributing software.
I'm not sure on that.
The image I thought was something like a virtual image. Then you just copy the files, have a script maybe, and that's it.
Yeah.
And
Vanilla OS is doing right now, where you basically have the two roots on your file system, and you actively use one root, and then there's a whole other root that's in the background that just handles updates. And
well, Vanilla OS has the one where you can use the native packaging package manager app, but then they have the whole other system, where you can pull in stuff from Arch and Fedora and all that.
Well, I think
DistroBox and Apex.
In the user space, you're dealing with DistroBox, but on the back end, they have two separate root file systems.
Yeah, you could.
You're talking about other than that, they have two. Okay, I got you.
And they have Docker or what's the other one?
Podman.
Yeah, Podman. Podman.
I'm back.
The other thing is I found out why Nix, I can't create anything with OpenGL like Alacrity, KDN Live, or OBS Studio. It's because OpenGL requires dynamic linking, because you could be on a system with NVIDIA or AMD or Intel or something. So it has to be dynamically linked. And Nix requires it to be statically linked. Everything in Nix is statically linked. So they bring down something from somewhere and it's statically linked to who knows what, right? So it's a known issue, and it's nothing being resolved about it. So you can never create anything with OpenGL through Nix at the moment. I don't know about Nix OS, but I know Nix on Debian doesn't work.
I think
I do have to. Excuse me. I've got to say we've got a couple of comments in the chat. I did want to mention that Murray, since they can't see you, they just hear your voice. They're asking, is that secretly DJ Ware talking, the YouTuber DJ Ware? And then another person wants to know if Stefan is a Network Chuck. Is that Network Chuck? You know, because of the beer.
I don't know DJ Ware.
No, I'm too lazy to put. I don't apply so much hair product.
Right. You.
Yeah. I keep the natural way, I'd say.
Like they're playing the game who looks like what YouTuber?
Like,
Well, I still
of
got
course,
my hair anyway.
Richard Stallman is my visual idol.
Well, if you would dye it gray, you would almost be there, right?
Oh,
and of course, I can pass for any bald man.
Yeah.
Because we all look alike, right? So.
Yeah.
So, Josh, you mentioned last week that you can get binaries for Python, the runtime. Did you?
I wasn't.
Somebody did, I think, and I can't find it. I can't find it on PyPy. I can find source, but I still can't compile the source, and I can't find any binaries for Python. I thought there might be some, but I guess I'm not sure.
I don't think it was me.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that.
I know it wasn't me.
That wasn't you? Okay.
No way.
Did anybody distro hop in the last month?
Oh, that's. I mean,
other than HipDad.
I didn't distro hop. I'm part of the competition going on with the Linux cast. I'm not actually part of it because Kubuntu works great for me. It's nice and stable. I did go to MX Linux KDE AHS version, but it did not completely install. I didn't have complete control over my NVIDIA card. It just gave me a partial control panel, the settings. You couldn't go into display to move your monitors around or anything. So I hosed it and went back to Kubuntu.
MX is based off of Debian Stable, and Debian Stable hasn't had a release in a while, so I don't know.
Well, it was running the 6.0 kernel and stuff, and that's why I was trying to go to it. But and then the driver it did install, there's a section for compatibility, which you have to install that part. It's a lib file. You have to install that so the rest of the control panel shows up, but it wouldn't, for some reason, it wouldn't let me. But they were only using the 5.15 driver, and as soon as I went back to Kubuntu, I was able to install the 5.25 driver. So I'm pretty much sticking with Kubuntu because this is what I use to access work remotely. So
if it's working, I mean, why not?
Yeah, Kubuntu's pretty rock solid. It has some little twerks here and there. I'm on the 5.
Twerks?
Yeah, twerks. It twerks. It shakes all over the place.
I might recall a certain situation, sir.
And
I don't want my distro to twerk.
Yeah, so I went and now I forgot what the hell you twerked me out of my consciousness.
Oh yeah, DT. Have you ever thought of making a video on Serenity OS?
People have asked about it before. I don't know anything about it. I know it's written down somewhere on a to-do list of all kinds of suggestions that people have made. Maybe. But I don't. What is Serenity OS? Give us a quick overview.
So it's a 90s love letter to computer operating systems. It's pretty much an operating system written from zero. It even has its own JavaScript interpreter, its own browser engine. Everything is written from scratch, from zero, and
it looks exactly like Windows 95.
Yeah,
I can see why I haven't gotten around to this. I actually am looking at it, like literally, it looks like Windows 95.
Someone also added a theme for it that also makes it look more.
Is it the hot dog stand theme with the green and the red, or the yellow and the red?
I don't know if it has that, but it probably does.
There's a lot. Actually, there's
it can run Doom and Quake it has an OpenGL implementation with its own renderer and stuff.
It has a web browser that supports JavaScript and WebAssembly.
Yeah, it has its own web browser with own web engine, all from zero.
Yeah, I'm looking.
You can try
the
that.
website.
That's Ladybug. There's a
Yeah,
port
Ladybug,
for
yeah.
Linux. And there's Kling. I think he worked for Apple, I think, or for the browser department.
Yeah,
so he might know something about browsers.
They ported the Ladybug browser, so it works on Linux and Windows and other platforms with Qt6, I think.
But it has a little bit of charm of NetSurf at the moment.
Yeah,
JavaScript is not fully working, and
it's mostly implemented JavaScript. I think it's like 80% of the specification implemented.
Well, I will make a note again that I need to check out Serenity OS. Now that I'm looking at the webpage, I know I've taken a look at this webpage before, and I'm assuming the reason I didn't get around to it, and I've been putting it off, is because the look.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real. It's kind of unsettling when you look at the screenshots.
What's wrong with
Yeah.
it?
I see.
It's nothing wrong with it. If you like your operating systems from 30 years ago to still look like they're
I see
30 years old.
Manager, I see a terminal, I see a web browser, and I see a system monitor and a launch menu. So it's just like it works. It's like bare essential,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well,
it could be worse. I'll say this: it could be worse. They could be trying to mimic Windows 3.1.
No,
at least they didn't go that far.
They want to do something like Linux or FreeBSD. I think it's more close to FreeBSD because they're also
actually it kind of resembles React OS because React OS, of course, has that like Windows 2000 kind of look. It looks a little more modern, but just a little.
I think they even got Wine to work. I think.
Oh, okay.
I remember one thing. Well, on the Kubuntu thing, I'm running 5.26 Plasma, but I also tried on this laptop MX Linux Fluxbox, and I was really impressed. Really, yeah, really impressed.
There's nothing wrong with any of those old floating window managers, any of the boxes, Fluxbox and OpenBox. JWM is very similar as well. You've never tried that out. They all blazing fast and really
I never
customizable.
liked the configuration of OpenBox though. Like
I found an old video from when I was on Ustream of me installing Crunchbang.
Yeah, the OpenBox configuration is messy with all the XML files. Yeah. That's the only problem is you've got this gigantic file because there's so much
meta.
Superfluous code with XML tags that if they'd have written it or had it in a better syntax, it'd be a lot easier.
Yeah.
But I mean, once you get the hang of it, and once you've got it set up, it's not like any window manager. Once you've got it configured, you never really change it.
Box config is that it's actually portable with LabWC, which is OpenBox but for Wayland.
No, okay.
Has anyone opted for Alma Linux recently? I'm actually considering running this on my spare SSD and eventually hop at some point in the future.
Linux.
I've played with it for a couple of days. I made a brief video about it. It's honestly, if you need like a Red Hat kind of environment, it's very similar to like CentOS or it does what you need. So I wouldn't tell you not to use it. I would definitely say give it a go.
I liked CentOS, but I have to get rid of it at some point.
Well, now, you got to move to an alternative, and Alma seems really nice.
I hopped to a mixture of Rocky and Alma after the CentOS 8 to 9 whatever disaster.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically just a rebrand. It's what was CentOS was before, basically. It's
okay.
I can't really say one or the other is better, Rocky or Alma. Not yet.
As long as everything's 100% compatible with Red Hat, I mean, either one of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, pick your poison on that, right?
Honestly,
Yeah.
honestly, just run Red Hat. It's free for 16 devices.
I could
Yeah.
technically
Have more than
run
16 devices.
RHL. Yeah.
So, Derek, when's
Was
the
it-
last time you did a video on Nushell? 3 years ago?
Oh, it's been a while. It's been a while.
Do you still have it installed?
It's,
Oh, yeah.
It's up to
Yeah,
version
okay.
76. It's 3.5 years old. It's not the same Nushell it was 3 years ago. They have
and I do need to
functional
revisit it.
programming language
Yeah.
on it.
I do need to revisit it on the camera because you're right. It gets updated.
I played around with it a little bit.
Every couple of weeks, it seems like I'm getting a new version.
Yeah, every 21 days they have a new
21
release.
days. Okay.
And-
Yeah, it's quick. Like they push them out.
Yeah,
And sometimes it's major releases. Like there's
I was just going to say the last one was, well, the next one is 80. It's on 76 now. There's a huge release coming up in version 80 about 100 days from now. And I played a little bit. The integration with Bash looks pretty good. Like you can use some of their commands and then pipe it to grep and cut and all the other things too. So you can mix your standard commands in with it now, and it looks quite good. The functional language looks reasonable. I haven't played with it yet. I haven't put much time into it as much as I want, but it's looking pretty mature right now. And it still has breakages. They break things quite frequently.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at the Nushell right now. For those that have never seen the Nushell, I'm showing a little bit of it on camera. Showed the ls command just to show the columns kind of layout with Nushell. Very PowerShell like.
Yeah,
for
it
those.
has a where command, sort of SQL-like. Instead of saying, in order to get all the symlinks in a folder in Bash, you do ls-l grep up arrow S, I think, for symbolic links in the first line.
Mm-hmm.
In Nushell, you do ls pipe where type equals symlink on it. So it's more readable code. It's more verbose, but it's more readable. And they have a standard set of commands like where type equals or where date equals or some. So once you learn the basic commands, then you can apply them to all sorts of different situations on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's looking okay.
Well, guys, I know we still got about 13, 14 minutes, but let's go ahead and get a last word because this usually takes a little while to get through, and I do have to get out of here kind of quickly here. Got a family issue I got to go check on. So, George, send us out with a last word, sir.
Thanks again for hosting us this month, and it looks like it's going to be a little bit longer to the next time because the longer month.
Yeah. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, George. Hip Dad, say
Yes.
something inspiring.
Inspiring. If I want to live, I need to breathe. I'm currently installing. Well, actually, it's installed. I'm putting in the NVIDIA drivers on MX Linux, AHS, KDE, and it's installing the 520 for the laptop, but didn't want to install the 520 for the main computer system, that's discriminatory in my opinion. But it's installing it. It's so far it looks like it's clean, but I don't know what the control panel looks like yet. But yeah, the best inspiring thing I can tell you is if you're sitting back and doing nothing, then you're probably going to have plenty of time to sit back and regret everything.
Very deep. I like it. Well, thanks for hanging out with us.
Okay.
Josh, give us the last word.
So Linux 6.2 has released. Everything on the Arc GPU works. That means that from now on, all of my content and videos, and including this stream, are coming to you through AV1.
Very cool.
Hardware accelerated.
All right. Anything else?
No,
That's the quickest last word I think we've ever got from Josh. All right. Murray, give us the last word, sir.
Well, I got one more application called Boxy, which
I suspected you might.
yes, I know. I always do, don't I? And it's works with your dot files. If you want to redirect, if the program's saving, say, something into your home folder and you want to redirect it to home config.application name, you can use Boxy. It doesn't use symlinks. It uses bind mounts underneath.
And how do you spell Boxy?
BOXXY.
BOXXY. 2X. Okay.
And it stores, you specify everything in a config file. It's what file it's saving and what file you want it to, or what folder it's saving and what folder you want it to go to. And then if say it's tmux, instead of using tmux in the terminal, you use Boxy space tmux. And then it will use the configuration file and redirect any files that you specify in that configuration file. It seems to work okay, except I tried it with mPlayer and worked normally. It didn't work under Boxy. So some applications don't like having their folders redirected. And you can use it generally, not just for your home folder, any folder anywhere that the application uses, you can redirect it. So
Very cool.
Might be suitable for some people.
Yeah.
Other than that, that's been enjoyable. I enjoyed it again. I hope see you next time.
All right.
See ya.
Thanks, Murray. Slendy, give us the last word.
Install Gentoo.
Wow.
The classic.
Did Josh put you up to that?
No, I use Gentoo, I have to admit it.
I'm not allowed to jump off of Debian stable until August 14th.
Unironically, stop my distro hopping.
Gentoo stopped your distro hopping?
Yeah, it's what I stay now. That and Fedora. Fedora.
Well, it's hard to distro hop when the computer is constantly compiling. It's hard to burn that ISO that you need to.
It's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's just how powerful a package manager Portage actually is, and it allows you to compile your software however you want.
Yeah, Portage is great. Yeah,
I have.
that's the best thing about Gentoo is Portage. Yeah.
To set up your sound service with your web browser, which totally works when it comes to like Jitsi chats, which you're into in about every single day.
Anything else, Lindy?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, appreciate you chatting with us today. Stefan, give us some famous last words.
Well, I'm not sure if they're famous, but just stay safe, take care for each other, try not to gatekeep anybody, be friendly out there, and we'll be fine. And all the best for your family concerns, DT, and all the best to you, other chatters, and everyone else in the YouTube chat. Take care.
Thank you.
Very cool. And wasn't there a talk show host that always ended every show with "Take care of yourself and each other"? Who was that?
I don't know. I
don't know.
I remember Red Skelton had something like that.
That's what it sounded like.
Red Skelton. He said, "God
pretty
bless
universe
everyone."
standard, I think that.
Oh,
could
that's
be
right.
applied. Yeah.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us, Stefan.
Thank you.
All right, Andreas.
I have not much. I'm. If you about open systems, it's quite amazing if you have a look at an Apple II, and you have a look at all the schematics you got by Apple, so you can still fix things 35 years later. And I doubt that this will happen to the laptops we have now. I'm afraid.
Yeah. Yeah, and the ancient technology was really great, and that was way before anyone ever thought about like vendor lock-in and planned obsolescence and a lot of that stuff that has really taken on a whole new form here in the last 10 years especially.
I get my 74 Texas chips still and can fix most things, so that's really nice. But
very cool. Anything else?
Oh, thanks for having me here.
Appreciate you hanging out with us. And of course, my last word is going to be thanking you guys for hanging out with us on camera. Also, we had a couple of people that were here earlier that had to drop off. I know Big Pod had to go a little early. Dark Zero also was on earlier. He jumped off. Thank all you guys for hanging out. Those of you in the YouTube chat, I want to thank you guys too. I know we didn't answer too many questions and comments in the chat, but you guys were always spirited in conversation as well. So thanks for hanging out with us. And of course, I'm going to thank the patrons that couldn't be here. So I'm going to show whole bunch of names on the screen here. So thanks to all of these guys here. And other than that, let's wave bye to YouTube.
Bye.
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 JavaScript.